You're down in one of those polar seas where the BRL, eerily called the finger of death, is born. It's a strange, almost otherworldly place. The deep ocean where light barely reaches everything. Down there seems to have adapted to survive in darkness and intense cold. But even those truly hearty creatures aren't ready for what a barrel can do. When that briny, super-cooled water starts dripping down, a ghost story begins. The formation of these brinicles is a fascinating process, like an underwater science experiment, happening in real time. We know that when seawater freezes, it doesn't freeze like fresh water. Because of all the salt in it, it has to push out impurities to form the pure ice that floats at the top. This means the salty water or brine ends up trapped in channels and pockets within the ice when it sees the light of day. For the first time, a barrel resembles a pipe of ice reaching down from the underside of a layer of sea. Ice at first, a barrel is very fragile and its walls are thin, but the continuous flow of colder brine supports the growth of the barrel. It also prevents it from melting. Otherwise, this process would be inevitable, caused by the barrel contact with less cold surrounding water. As the ice accumulates and the walls become thicker, the barrel becomes more stable over time. The brine trapped inside gets squeezed out through tiny cracks dripping down in this cold, heavy plume. Once that cold brine starts flowing downward, it begins freezing the seawater around it into a sheath of ice. That's why, instead of melting as it hits the water below, it forms this icy casing that protects it, helping it grow longer and stronger. The barrel keeps moving forward inch by inch, and this crazy downward spiral is almost unstoppable. And when it touches down on the seafloor, that's when the trouble begins for anything living nearby. Imagine being one of those creatures on the sea floor, maybe a sea star or an unsuspecting urchin, just trying to make it through the day. And all of a sudden you see this icy tentacle nearing you. It isn't just some cold water coming down, it's basically a net of ice moving down and spreading out. There's no escape, no way to predict its coming, and no chance for survival. It's a slow motion, natural disaster in action. When Einler reaches the seafloor, it continues to accumulate ice, while the surrounding water freezes over. The brine keeps traveling across the seafloor in a downslope direction. Once it reaches the lowest possible point, it stops and pools, but don't let the danger distract you from how beautiful brinicles are. Well, in their own creepy way, they look like something you'd see in a dream. Elegant twisting ice tubes reaching down, perfectly symmetrical and totally random. Filming a barrel is no easy task because they're delicate. When they first form, just the motion from a nearby current or a sudden change in temperature can snap them off, ending the show before it really starts. So scientists who managed to capture barrels on film in 2011 actually got incredibly lucky. It was the first time the world got to see this icy finger descending and freezing everything it touched. And it changed our understanding of polar ecosystems. Brinicles can reach quite impressive sizes. Sometimes they can stretch for several feet. Their size depends on the conditions of the water and ice. Above, the slower the water movement, and the colder the temperature, the bigger and stronger a barrel can grow. But if the water's too deep, or if there's too much movement in the current, the barrel is likely to break apart. It needs just the right balance to survive long enough to touch down and freeze over the ocean floor for creatures living on the sea. Floor brinicles are like invisible booby traps, only instead of avoiding a net, they're avoiding an expanding ice cage. Starfish and sea urchins might not have big brains, but they have a basic survival instinct to crawl away from danger. Sadly, with brinicles, they're usually caught completely off guard. 1 second, they're minding their own business. The next, an icy sheet is closing in around them, trapping them where they are and freezing them almost instantly. It's hard not to feel sympathy for these creatures. Right. You watch footage of a brinicle in action, and you see a starfish just stomping one moment. It's moving slowly along the sand, and then it's frozen in place, totally helpless. It's like watching a train wreck in slow-mo. Luckily, brinicles present danger only to smaller marine life. Forms like sea urchin and starfish. Bigger animals like seals or whales, or humans who happen to go diving in the ocean at the frigid poles. Brinicles are totally harmless. At the same time, for scientists, this tough natural phenomenon offers a fascinating insight into how life adapts, or fails to adapt for that matter, in extreme environments, and it gets even better. A BRI might just be the perfect setup for life to begin. Researchers are now looking at these super salty ice tubes as not just fatal traps, but potentially as sources of life. This theory isn't just science fiction, it's rooted in actual research. Here's how it goes. The brine channels in sea ice are full of tiny confined spaces. Those are exactly the kind of places where chemicals can get trapped, concentrated, and start interacting in interesting ways. It's like setting up a mini lab where the building blocks of life can come together and create something new. Scientists think this process of salt rejection in sea ice could have actually helped the first bits of life appear. Some researchers even think that this process might be happening right now, on icy moons like Europa, Canam, or Enceladus, where there might have been frozen seas beneath thick ice layers. Just imagine. Imagine it brinicles forming in other worlds of our solar system, laying down the foundations for extraterrestrial life, and all thanks to the same icy process that creates these fingers of death here on Earth. One way scientists describe brinicles is by comparing them to chemical gardens. Have you ever done one of those experiments where you mix metal salts into a solution and watch them produce plant-like structures? Well, you can observe a similar chemical process when a BRL is in action. In the cold, saline-rich brine of a BRL, certain reactions could kick off to create amino acids or other building blocks of life. It's wild to think that something so dangerous could have also helped shape our world, or could be creating other forms of life elsewhere. In both cases, whether on Earth or another planet, these icy chemical reactions might be the first step toward the formation of simple life forms. It's a kind of alchemy, where ice and salt water mix to create something more than the sum of their parts. This is one reason why scientists are so eager to study brinicles. Each one could hold a tiny clue about how life begins, survives, or fails under extreme conditions. Something as mesmerizing and weird, but at the same time simple, as brinicles hints at bigger questions. How did life start on Earth? What are the conditions needed for life to survive in extreme environments? Could icy structures like these exist in other parts of our solar system? Or beyond, creating similar conditions that might one day give rise to alien life as much as they look like a silent threat? Reaching out from the ice, brinicles are also reminders of how beautifully complex and interconnected our world is. They may seem like simple fingers of ice, but they hold secrets that touch on everything, from ecology to chemistry to the origins of life itself. So next time you hear about the ocean, remember that deep below, in the darkest, coldest waters, something incredible and a little bit terrifying is happening right at this moment. That's it for today. So hey, if you pacified your curiosity, then give the video a like and share it with your friends. Or if you want more, just click on these videos and stay on the hidden info secrets.